Hi there, friends. I'm Vasco. I'm part of the team behind the first global Scrum Master Summit. If you're a Scrum Master, the Scrum Master Summit is a place to learn, to share, and to meet new friends. We will have lots of live sessions where you can meet and network with other Scrum Masters from all over the globe. So make sure you check it at bit.ly/SM Summit and the numeral 21. That's bit.ly/SMSUMMIT21. We have 7 amazing keynotes or more, as we are still organizing the conference as I record this, and 8 tracks that feature people like you and thought leaders sharing their insights and knowledge to help you become an awesome Scrum Master. So once again, check it out at bit.ly/SM Summit 21. That's all lowercase, all one word, SM Summit and the numeral 21. I'll see you on the virtual conference floor. All right, now on to the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Team Tuesday this week with Susannah Chambers. Hi, Susannah. Welcome back.
Hi, Vasco.
So, Susannah, on Tuesdays, we talk about teams and how sometimes they cause their own problems. But before we dive into that, what was the book that most influenced you in your career as a Scrum Master?
It's called Chief Joy Officer by Sheridan at Menlo Innovations. And it literally just mesmerized me from the first page. It talked about joy, finding joy in the workplace and being joyful in the way in which one works. And I really resonated with this because since being a teenager, I remember being asked as a teenager what my purpose in life was. And I don't know where it came from, but I immediately said, I want to bring joy. And that's always stuck with me. And this book came to me at a point that really resonated in my journey as a Scrum Master, because I realised that actually as a Scrum Master, I am very fortunate in having a high degree of agency to empower and influence teams and the individuals that make those up and how they show up to work every day. And there was a great feeling to discover in this book that joy as, let's face it, the mystical metric that is so difficult to measure. You know, I mean, I'm very into quantifying the unquantifiable, and to discover a book with a high-tech company's chief executive talking about that as a driving factor in understanding value was just so liberating.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you give an example of what Richard Sheridan talks about in terms of the impact of that perspective in the company he was describing, of course, Menlo Innovations?
Yeah, sure. Well, as I mentioned, other than the fact that joy is viewed to be not just a nice to have, but an essential part of a working culture and healthy teams, there were a couple of really brilliant examples, I thought. So the first being that paired programming is a given at Menlo Innovations. So the book describes about how, as an approach for software development, that the automatic go-to way of working is about paired programming. So that idea that you've actually got that sharing of experience underpinned by joy as a core value was a real eye-opener for me, because whenever I've tended, certainly earlier in my career, not so much in my current role because there's some excellent paired programming work going on, but previously it would always be very much kind of a mechanical way of describing developing software, and almost like a nice to have, like a bolt on, oh, we might try this. Whereas in this book, Chief Joy Officer, it was evident that that pairing, that sharing of experience in the actual software development was viewed to be the optimal way of building a healthy, joyful culture, and in a way that resulted in a high quality product. So I love that. And another example that I loved, thinking about ways of working of teams and team health and people feeling included and empowered and able to show up to their work. They have, for many years at Menlo, actively encouraged new parents to bring their babies to work. So they actually have an approach that says, hey, new parents, we include you, we want you to be part of the team. We don't want you to feel as if, having your baby should be a hindrance to you showing up in your full self at work. And there are some lovely, delightful stories about how, as a whole company culture, parents are coming to work doing software development, but actually other colleagues, helping hold the baby, or, it just being completely automatic that a baby would be part of that working culture, which I just think is a brilliant, brilliant example of pushing the boundaries for team health.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you think about it, I mean, just a little bit further to the history of our existence as society, as groups of people living together, that has always been a permeating aspect of life, right? I mean,
Sure.
we don't need to go too far, maybe 100 years or so, to have 3-4 generations living in the same household, and babies being cared for by multiple adults, not just the parents, was a normal thing in the past. And it's I can't help but think that we as humans are programmed to help with the raising up of babies, and of course also to ask for help and share that burden with close people. So it kind of reminds me, that story reminds me that what they are tapping into is our nature as human beings, not just joy being part of it, but allowing us to be human.
Precisely, Vasco. And I think the reason why that book particularly resonated with me as a Scrum Master is because, exactly as you've just said, about human history, and I've worked a lot in family learning over the last 16 years, so adult education. And we always use that phrase, it takes a village to raise a family, right? That well-known phrase. And for me, that phrase absolutely epitomizes what we're all about with Scrum Mastery. Yeah. So, I mean, what better analogy is there for great teamwork than it takes a family to raise a child, in the same way, as it takes a team to raise a product of high quality.
Absolutely. Great analogy there, Susannah. And let's dive into those teams then, and talk about perhaps, those difficult moments that we all go through. We know that teams sometimes develop this, behaviors or patterns that over time become a problem for the team. So walk us through one of those stories. Tell us a little bit about the context of the team, and then especially pay attention how those patterns or anti-patterns developed over time, slowly over time, that ultimately led to problems.
Yeah, in terms of self-destructive behaviour, and actually the antithesis of joy, joyless, which I found really impacting on teams and was very difficult for me as a Scrum Master. I was working on a national construction project in education, and it was absolutely remarkable how a team of very positive, skilled individuals came together, and in their own right as a Scrum team had everything going for them, very, very capable. And yet, through this very strange kind of approach to introducing Scrum to the organisation and to stakeholders, there were so many worrying behaviours that creeped in, actually almost infighting politically within the organisation. So we were the first Scrum team in an organisation that had never ever done any Agile before. And it was a classic case of them saying, yes, we want to be Agile, we want to do Scrum. Whereas, we both know, Vasco, don't we? There is a difference between being Agile and doing Agile.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular project involved a lot of stakeholders in terms of reporting on targets, and it was a very, very big project. And all of the stakeholders wanted reporting done in a very classic waterfall type of way. So we ended up working Scrum. We were working as a Scrum team, but then in terms of translating that for stakeholders, we almost needed to put a load of extra effort into then translating how we were reporting on how we'd completed the stories in waterfall terms in order for it to be palatable for those stakeholders. And sadly, in that translation process, because there was a lack of strategic buy-in from senior leaders, it actually ended up with there being a lot of kind of blame culture developing, a lot of finger pointing. For example, if a stakeholder didn't understand a particular aspect of why something was being reported in a particular way, and rather than actually the organisation at a strategic level coming together, and building that culture and championing an agile approach, it ended up with there being lots of anti-patterns internally with that kind of blame culture. And that was really unfortunate because actually, that created probably the greatest pressure on the team compared to doing the work. The work bit was easy. It was actually handling all the political anti-patterns and the infighting that created the greatest difficulty.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that comes to mind from this story is that although some people might think, and perhaps in the surface it might even seem that reporting is something you do after the work is done, my own experience and the story you just told kind of illustrates that the way we need to report what we do and how we do it and the progress affects how we work. And I was just thinking that as you were describing that story, that if we want to be agile, we need to shape the reporting to fit the fact that we are agile and not try to fit the way we work to a way of reporting that was devised before agile even existed. I'm reminded of words like milestones, for example. Milestones was never a word devised for agile teams because agile teams deliver every iteration or every sprint in the case of Scrum teams. So they don't need milestones because they're always ready to deliver. But of course, teams that do things in skill silos like design and testing and development in separate teams, maybe even, they need milestones because, of course, the teams down the line in the process need to know when they are required. So I was just thinking that actually the reporting is a crucial aspect of how we Scrum Masters need to help the team, like to shape the reporting to how the team works rather than shape the team to the reporting. And it sounds to me, or at least that's what I got out of this story. But how about you, Susannah? What do you want our listeners to take out of this story?
Yeah, well, 100% I agree with you. And I suppose my message to Scrum Masters and my learning from that situation was that as Scrum Masters, we have a pivotal role to play, not only in doing all the things we would expect a Scrum Master to do in terms of ceremonies and removing blockers, etc., but actually we have a key role to play in helping teams translate how the stakeholders need to receive that information. We know people have different communication styles, right? So in the same way as anybody would try and adapt their communication in order to create a positive relationship with somebody, as Scrum Masters, we have a responsibility and a lot of power actually to help shape that communication. So that translating of what are the team doing and helping them to do that in a way that is palatable and is going to build positive relationships with stakeholders is absolutely pivotal to the good workings of a Scrum team.
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually a great point too, right? That the way the team interacts with the system around it, in this case reporting, is a critical aspect that we need to help with when necessary. Of course, sometimes the teams can do it on their own and they already have the processes and the routines in place. But if we don't help the teams that don't have those routines in place, we might actually be creating a kind of a self-defeating anti-pattern, something that drives the team not to be agile because of the way the information is reported.
Very much so. And actually, it can be very, very toxic over time because the less equipped a team is to articulate that value to stakeholders through translating their reporting in a way that is going to be well received, it's actually very demoralizing because over time, if the stakeholders are not getting the value that the team is driving, then the feedback loop that they can be getting is, well, it's not good enough, or, well, that's not what we wanted, or why have you done this? And of course, that's then a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because if those communication loops are not aligned, and if teams start to feel as if, well, the stakeholders aren't getting it, like we're doing all this, we think we're doing the right thing, but then it doesn't seem to be being well received. And it might just be because of the way in which those outcomes are being reported. So it can end up being very, very counterproductive if the Scrum Master, I think, does not help broker almost the style in which the value that is delivered is translated into terms that stakeholders will actually champion and want to give positive feedback on.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well said. Thank you for that, Susannah.
Pleasure.
Tuesday is Team Day here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. But tomorrow we talk about something that goes beyond the work we do with the teams. We will talk about how to lead change and what our guests have learned from leading and participating in change programs during their career. See you tomorrow. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.